First Contact. Supreme Commander Vexterra stood at the helm of the Eternal Glory, her iridescent scales shimmering under the bridge's cold light. The massive viewscreen before her displayed a small blue planet, unremarkable save for the scattered artificial satellites orbiting it. Her four eyes narrowed as she studied the supposedly primitive world that would soon become another trophy in the Xanthari Empire's vast collection. Battle analysis complete. Supreme Commander, her second-in-command, Crowl, reported. His voice carried the characteristic metallic undertone of all Xanthari males. Defensive capabilities appear minimal. Primitive orbital structures, no detected energy shields, and scattered ground-based installations that barely register on our scanners. Vexterra's upper lip curled in what passed for a smile among her species, exactly as intelligence reported. These humans have barely managed to leave their atmosphere. She turned to face her bridge crew, her ceremonial armor catching the light. Prepare the first wave. I want a clean conquest. The Empire demands precision. But something nagged at the edges of her consciousness. The intelligence briefing had included a curious footnote, one she had initially dismissed. Warning: historical data suggests unusual adaptive capabilities. Recommend caution in initial approach. Supreme Commander, Crowl interrupted her thoughts. There's something odd about their orbital defense pattern. Explain. The satellites. They're arranged in a way that seems random, but our deep analysis suggests there might be a purpose we can't decipher. And some of the ground installations appear to be dormant rather than primitive. Vexterra waved a clawed hand dismissively. Overthinking, Crowl. We've conquered 17 worlds this cycle alone. This will be no different. She moved to her command chair, settling her massive frame into the bioengineered seat. Launched the probe drones, standard surveillance pattern. The drones deployed smoothly, their sleek forms disappearing into the darkness of space. The bridge crew worked in efficient silence, monitoring their progress. Minutes passed. First drone reaching upper atmosphere, the sensor officer announced. Data stream normal. Wait. He leaned forward, his scales bristling. Signal lost. Launch replacement. Vexterra ordered, unconcerned. Second drone deployed. Signal lost. Third drone. Signal lost. The sensor officer's voice carried a note of confusion. Supreme Commander, all drones are going dark the moment they reach the same atmospheric threshold. Vexterra rose from her chair, her tail swishing in irritation. Impossible. Our technology is generations ahead of anything this world could possess. She strode to the sensor station, examining the readings herself. Launch a full squadron. Overwhelming numbers will reveal their defensive mechanism. 50 drones launched simultaneously, their formation perfect, their trajectory calculated to microsecond precision. On the view screen, they appeared as a swarm of silver insects approaching the blue marble of Earth. They vanished. All of them. No explosions, no energy signatures, no debris. They simply ceased to exist. For the first time in her long career, Vexterra felt something akin to unease. Full scan of the atmosphere. Every frequency, every spectrum. The results came back blank. According to their most sophisticated instruments, there was nothing there. No defense system, no energy field, no weapons, just empty space that somehow swallowed their technology whole. Perhaps, Crowl ventured carefully, we should consult the historical archives about human capabilities before proceeding. We are the Xanthari Empire, Vexterra snapped, her pride stinging. We do not retreat from primitives who haven't even established a lunar colony. She turned to her tactical officer. Prepare the first wave of fighters. Real pilots, not drones. Let's see how their defenses handle living warriors. As her crew rushed to comply, Vexterra returned to studying the planet. Something about its apparent defenselessness felt wrong, like a trap waiting to be sprung. But she had built her career on bold action, on taking worlds that others deemed too risky or too well defended. Her name was spoken with reverence throughout the Empire because she never showed weakness, never hesitated. The fighter squadrons launched, 12 ships in perfect formation. Each pilot was a veteran of dozens of conquests. Each ship a masterpiece of Zentheri engineering. Vextera watched them approach the atmosphere, her claws digging into the armrests of her command chair. The lead pilot's voice crackled over the comm, entering upper atmosphere. No sign of. Wait. Something's. My instruments are. Supreme Commander, there's something out here with us. Something big. But I can't get a lock. It's like it's everywhere and nowhere and. Static. One by one, the fighter signatures winked out on the tactical display. No distress calls, no explosion signatures, no debris. Just silence. Supreme Commander, Krall said softly, I believe we may have gravely underestimated. A new signal cut through their communications, crystal clear despite their electronic countermeasures. A human voice, speaking perfect Zentheri. This is your only warning. Leave now or learn why every other species has learned to avoid Earth's orbit. You have 10 minutes to decide. Vextera stood frozen, her mind racing. In all her years of conquest, no species had ever managed to penetrate their communications so easily, so completely. And something about the voice, its calm certainty, sent an ancestral warning crawling down her spine. But she was Zentheri, and Zentheri did not retreat. Battle stations, she commanded, her voice firm despite her growing unease. Prepare the main fleet for atmospheric entry. We will show these humans the full might of the Empire. As her crew scrambled to obey, Vextera couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to learn why that intelligence briefing had warned about human adaptability. She was about to learn, perhaps too late, why Earth remained unconquered in a galaxy full of ambitious empires. And somewhere, in the darkness between her fleet and that seemingly defenseless blue world, something was watching, waiting, ready to teach another lesson about the price of underestimating humanity. The silent response. The 10 minutes passed like a death sentence countdown. Vextera used every second, deploying her fleet in the most formidable combat formation the Zentheri Empire had developed over millennia of warfare. 147 ships, arranged in a three-dimensional geometric pattern designed to cover every possible angle of attack. No response to our advance, Krall reported, his scales now a pale shade of anxiety. No further communications from the surface, no detected movement of their orbital bodies. Just silence. Vextera's right hand unconsciously traced the battle scars on her ceremonial armor. The silence is their response, Krall. They expect us to turn back, frightened by shadows and malfunctioning equipment. She bared her teeth in what humans might mistake for a smile. Begin the descent. All ships, full combat screens. The Zentheri fleet moved as one, a lethal dance of metal and energy advancing toward Earth's atmosphere. On every ship, crews stood ready at their stations, weapons primed, shields at maximum. They were the pride of an empire that spanned thousands of worlds. Surely no single planet could stand against such might. The first sign that something was wrong came from the engineering deck. Supreme Commander. The chief engineer's voice carried a tremor Vextera had never heard before. The ship's quantum core is singing. Explain. There's a resonance pattern we've never encountered. It's as if something is communicating directly with our power source. The frequency keeps changing, adapting to our containment measures. Before Vextera could respond, reports flooded in from across the fleet. Ship after ship reported the same phenomenon. Their quantum cores, the heart of Zentheri technology, were being influenced by an outside force that defied their understanding. Full spectrum analysis, Vextera commanded. I want to know what they're. The lights flickered, just once. When they stabilized, every screen on the bridge displayed the same message, written in elegant Zentheri script. Your quantum technology is fascinating. Primitive, but fascinating. We've downloaded the specifications. Thank you for the contribution to our archives. Vextera's blood ran cold. The message wasn't just in their language. It was in an ancient military cipher that hadn't been used in centuries. The humans hadn't just broken their encryption. They'd studied their history. "Impossible," she whispered. "Our firewalls are genetic. Our security systems are bound to Xanthari DNA. They couldn't possibly." Multiple ships reporting system anomalies. Krell interrupted, his voice rising with each word. Weapon systems reconfiguring without command. Navigation showing phantom readings. And Supreme Commander, we're picking up movement. Everywhere. The space around the fleet had come alive. What they had dismissed as debris, as simple satellites, were transforming, unfolding, growing. Each piece connected to others in ways that defied physics, creating structures that shouldn't exist. "Battle positions," Vex Terra roared. "All ships, open fire." The fleet responded instantly, releasing a barrage of energy weapons that could shatter moons. The beams struck their targets and passed through them as if they weren't there. "Holograms?" Krell suggested hopefully. The answer came in the form of a subtle shift in reality around them. The holographic structures flickered and vanished, revealing what lay behind them, an entire defensive grid that had been there all along, hidden not by technology, but by something more fundamental. The humans hadn't built defenses in space. They'd built them into space itself. "Supreme Commander," the sensor officer called out, his voice barely a whisper. "We're detecting quantum entanglement signatures, millions of them. The entire orbit. It's one massive computational network, and it's solving for us." Understanding dawned too late. The humans hadn't built conventional defenses because they'd advanced beyond the need for them. They'd turned their orbital space into a quantum computer of unimaginable complexity. Every move the Xanthari fleet could make, every possible strategy, had been calculated and countered before they'd even arrived. The first ship disappeared without a sound. One moment it was there. The next it simply ceased to exist, as if it had never been. Then another, and another. "They're not destroying them," the science officer realized, horror creeping into her voice. "They're calculating them out of space-time, literally editing them from reality." Vex Terra watched as her mighty fleet began to unravel, not through violence or conventional warfare, but through mathematics so advanced it bordered on magic. The humans weren't fighting them. They were solving them, like an equation that needed balancing. "All ships, full retreat," she ordered, her pride finally breaking under the weight of comprehension. "Maximum speed, any vector clear of orbital space." But it was too late. The quantum network had already solved for that possibility. As the fleet turned to flee, new structures materialized around them, or perhaps they had always been there, waiting for this exact moment. The Xanthari ships found themselves trapped in a geometric maze that shifted and changed faster than their nav computers could process. A new message appeared on their screens. Your retreat was calculated with 99.99% probability. The remaining 0.01% involved you learning something. We prefer that outcome. Prepare for education. The last thing Vex Terra saw before her consciousness began to fade was a simple mathematical formula floating across her vision. It was elegant, beautiful, and completely beyond her understanding. In that moment, she finally grasped the truth. They hadn't found a primitive world to conquer. They'd found humanity's front door, and they'd knocked with unforgivable arrogance. The eternal glory, pride of the Xanthari fleet, hung motionless in Earth's orbit, its crew unconscious, its systems completely under human control. The education was about to begin. The hunter becomes the hunted. Consciousness returned to Vex Terra like waves lapping at a distant shore. Her first realization was that she could still think. Her second was that she couldn't move. At all. The bridge of the eternal glory looked exactly as it had before, except for one detail. A human stood at its center. Not a hologram, not a projection, an actual human in what appeared to be casual attire, studying a handheld device that looked more like an antique than advanced technology. "Fascinating neural architecture you have," the human said without looking up. "Four-lobed brain, distributed consciousness, parallel processing capabilities. Really quite impressive for an evolved species. He finally met her gaze. Oh, and don't worry about moving. We've temporarily suspended the connection between your consciousness and motor functions. Purely precautionary. Vexterra tried to speak and found she could. Who? What are you? Dr. Marcus Chen, Earth Defense Initiative. He smiled disarmingly. Though titles don't mean much these days, I'm just the one who drew the short straw for first contact with your species. First contact. Vexterra would have laughed if she could. We came to conquer your world. Yes, about that. Chen walked to the main view screen, making a casual gesture. The view shifted to show the Zenthari fleet, still frozen in space. We've been watching your empire expand for quite some time, cataloging your technologies, studying your tactics, analyzing your psychology. You see, Earth isn't just a planet. It's a filter. The screen shifted again, showing hundreds of different alien vessels, all seemingly derelict, floating in a massive artificial structure somewhere beyond Earth's moon. The Museum of Hubris, Chen explained. Every species that's tried to conquer Earth in the last 300 years. We keep the ships for study. The crews we send home, after they've learned their lesson. 300 years. Vexterra's mind raced. But your civilization showed no signs of advanced technology, interstellar capability, global unity. Chen shook his head. We learned long ago that advertising our capabilities only attracts more conflict. It's much more efficient to appear primitive and let aggressors reveal themselves. Your empire isn't the first to mistake patience for weakness. A holographic display materialized between them, showing a complex network of lines connecting thousands of stars. While you were busy conquering 17 worlds this cycle, humanity has been quietly maintaining peace across nearly a third of the galaxy. Those primitive satellites you detected, quantum nodes in a network that spans hundreds of light years. We didn't build defenses around Earth because Earth itself is the defense system. The truth hit Vexterra like a physical blow. The whole planet is. A singularity computer, yes, has been for centuries. We reversed engineered gravity itself, learned to compute with space-time. Chen gestured at her frozen crew. Your quantum cores. We developed and abandoned that technology before your species achieved spaceflight. The only reason we let you keep them is that they're harmless on a cosmic scale. Why? Vexterra struggled to form the question. Why reveal this now? Why not simply destroy us? Chen's expression softened. Because destruction is easy. Education is hard. We found that the best way to prevent future conflicts is to show potential aggressors exactly how outmatched they are, and then send them home to spread the word. The view screen shifted again, showing Earth's surface, but not the primitive world they detected. The illusion had been stripped away, revealing a planet transformed. Massive structures that defied physics stretched from surface to orbit, cities that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Technology so advanced it was indistinguishable from natural phenomena. Your empire prides itself on technological superiority, Chen continued. So we're going to give you a gift, understanding. For the next few hours, we're going to download into your neural networks a basic primer on human scientific advancement, just enough to help you grasp how fundamentally you misunderstood what you were facing. And then you go home, with proof, with data, with the kind of certainty that can only come from seeing the truth with your own eyes. Chen checked his device again. The download is ready. I should warn you, this will be intense. Before Vexterra could respond, her world exploded into light and knowledge. She saw the true history of human advancement, how they transcended traditional technology, learned to manipulate reality itself, developed ways to hide entire civilizations in plain sight. She saw their network of worlds, their quantum defense systems, their mastery over dimensions her people hadn't even discovered yet. Most importantly, she saw their restraint, their deliberate choice to remain hidden, to act as silent guardians rather than conquerors. The power to obliterate empires wielded with the wisdom to choose education over destruction. When the download finished, Vexterra found herself able to move again. She slumped in her command chair, her mind reeling from information that would take years to fully process. Chen stepped forward, offering what appeared to be a simple data crystal. Your proof and your warning. Share it with your empire. Help them understand why Earth's sector of space should remain undisturbed. Vexterra took the crystal with trembling claws. They'll never believe it. They will. Chen smiled that disarming smile again. Because deep down, every spacefaring species knows the truth. The galaxy is far older and stranger than any of us first assumed. Humanity just learned to embrace that strangeness sooner than most. Understanding too late. The journey back to Xanthari space was silent, heavy with the weight of revelation. Vexterra's fleet, once proud and mighty, now moved like chastened children under human escort. A single small vessel that somehow kept pace with their fastest ships without visible propulsion. She spent most of the journey in her quarters, reviewing the data crystal. Each viewing revealed new layers of understanding, new depths of human advancement that made her previous concept of technology seem like stone tools in comparison. A soft chime announced Krell's presence. Supreme Commander, we're approaching the border of Imperial space. He paused, scales shifting nervously. Our escort requests your presence on the bridge. The human vessel had maintained radio silence since their departure from Earth. Any communication now, after 3 days of quiet travel, couldn't be good. When Vexterra reached the bridge, she found Dr. Chen waiting, though she hadn't seen any transport beam or shuttle dock. He simply was there, as if the laws of physics were mere suggestions to be ignored at will. Before we part ways, Chen said, there's one final lesson, a demonstration of why we choose to hide our true nature. He gestured to the main view screen. Watch carefully. The screen showed a distant star system, unremarkable except for its location near a major Xanthari trade route. As they watched, something impossible happened. The entire system, star, planets, everything, seemed to fold in on itself, collapsing into patterns that hurt to look at. When it reformed seconds later, it was different, advanced, transformed. What you just witnessed, Chen explained, was the awakening of one of our dormant systems. We have thousands like it, scattered throughout the galaxy, each one capable of transforming entire regions of space into what you might call computational substrate. Vexterra's 4 eyes widened. How long have you been out here? Longer than your empire has existed. Longer than most species suspect intelligent life has existed. Chen's casual demeanor slipped slightly, revealing something ancient beneath. We're not just Earth's current civilization, Commander. We're the sum of every human civilization that has risen and transcended, each one choosing to remain behind to guide those that would follow. The implication staggered her. You're saying humans have achieved technological singularity multiple times throughout our history, yes. Each time, most of us moved on to, let's call them other dimensions. But some stayed behind, merged with our technology, became the guardians you see today. The view screen shifted again, showing familiar star systems. But now Vexterra could see what she'd missed before. The subtle signs of human presence woven into the very fabric of space. Hidden nodes in a galaxy-spanning network that had existed right under everyone's noses. Your empire wasn't the first to dream of conquest, Commander. We've watched countless civilizations rise, expand, and eventually learn the same lesson you're learning now. Chen's voice carried equal parts compassion and warning. The galaxy isn't unclaimed territory waiting to be conquered. It's a garden we've been tending for longer than your species has walked upright. A new image appeared, a real-time strategic display of the known galaxy. But this version showed something no Xanthari map had ever revealed. Layers upon layers of human influence, protection grids, and dimensional anchors maintaining what Chen had called their garden. We show you this not to threaten, but to help you understand your place in a much larger picture. Chen produced another data crystal, this one glowing with an inner light that seemed to bend reality around it. This contains a gift, the fundamental principles behind your quantum core technology, refined and improved, enough to advance your civilization significantly, but not enough to threaten the balance we maintain. Vexterra took the crystal, understanding the implicit message. The humans could have simply erased the Xanthari Empire from existence. Instead, they chose to offer guidance, a chance to grow within carefully maintained boundaries. "Why help us at all?" she asked, "after we tried to invade your world." Chen smiled, but this time it held a hint of that ancient something she glimpsed earlier. "Because long ago, we were you. Proud, aggressive, certain of our superiority. It took several near extinctions before we learned better. Now we try to help others learn those lessons with fewer scars." The human turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Commander, that warning you'll deliver to your empire about avoiding Earth. Make it clear that Earth itself isn't the boundary. We are everywhere, watching, guiding, preventing any single species from repeating our mistakes. The age of empires is ending. The age of understanding is beginning." With that, he vanished, not with any visible technology or effect, but simply ceased to be present, as if he'd stepped sideways out of reality itself. Vexterra stood on her bridge, clutching the crystal that represented both her empire's future and the end of its dreams of unlimited expansion. She understood now why the humans had let her fleet get so close, why they'd chosen to educate rather than eliminate. Sometimes the most effective prison was one where the inmates didn't even realize they were being contained. The Xanthari Empire, like countless others, had never been truly free to expand as they wished. They had always been part of humanity's garden, growing within boundaries they couldn't see, guided by gardeners they never noticed. The lesson: 10 cycles had passed since the Earth incident. Vexterra stood before the Imperial Council, her once gleaming armor now bearing the simple markings of an ambassador rather than a military commander. The vast chamber, hewn from living crystal deep within the Xanthari homeworld, held representatives from every major house and colony world. "The humans have made contact again," she announced, her voice carrying none of the martial pride it once had. "They wish to inform us that the integration phase is complete." The council chamber erupted in murmurs. Everyone knew what that meant. The quantum core improvements provided by the humans had transformed Xanthari society, solving their energy crisis, eliminating resource scarcity, and advancing their medical technology beyond recognition. But it had come with a price: the gradual dismantling of their military empire. "Show us," the first speaker commanded. Vexterra activated the crystalline display at the chamber center. A galactic map materialized, but this one was different from the imperial maps of old. It showed the new reality: a network of cooperative worlds, each connected through carefully regulated quantum channels, each developing under the watchful eye of humanity's hidden custodians. "The humans call it the Garden Network," she explained. "We're not the only former empire to join. The Proxians, the Vrel Collective, even the Meridian Cluster, all of them encountered humanity. All of them learned the same lesson we did." She manipulated the display, zooming in on their local sector. "What we thought was our destiny, to conquer and rule, was never possible. The humans had already solved the problem of galactic civilization long before our ancestors mastered fire. We were just too blind to see the framework they'd built." A council member rose, his scales flushed with anger. "We've become their pets, their prisoners." "No," Vexterra corrected softly. "We've become their students, and we're not alone." The display shifted again, showing thousands of developing civilizations, each one protected, guided, and gradually being prepared for the truth. "This is what they do. This is what they've always done. They find species with potential, let them develop until they reach the point of becoming a threat to themselves or others. Then, they teach." She remembered her last conversation with Dr. Chen just a few days ago. He'd explained it in terms she finally understood. Imagine finding a garden full of seedlings, each one capable of becoming either a healing herb or a deadly poison. Would you let them grow wild, or would you carefully tend them, guiding each one toward its better nature? The humans have given us a choice, she continued, addressing the council. We can continue to develop within the framework they've created, eventually joining them as custodians of younger species, or we can reject their guidance and be pruned. Another council member spoke up. And if we pretend to accept while secretly preparing for war? Vexterra actually laughed, a sound that would have been unthinkable from her a decade ago. They're not watching us, honored council. They're woven into the fabric of our reality. Every quantum core improvement they gave us, every technological advancement, they're all part of their network. We literally cannot develop weapons without them knowing, cannot plot against them without them seeing. The display changed one final time, showing Earth as it truly was, not the primitive world they'd tried to conquer, but the heart of something vast and ancient and infinitely patient. I spent 10 cycles studying what they showed me, Vexterra said. The more I learn, the more I understand why they do this. They're not building an empire. They're building a community. Every species they guide, every civilization they protect. It's all leading to something bigger than any of us could achieve alone. She touched the crystal hanging from her neck, the one Chen had given her, now serving as a constant reminder. They call it the Great Integration. Thousands of species, each unique, each valuable, all growing together toward a future we can barely imagine. And they're inviting us to be part of it. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Their choice wasn't really a choice at all. It was an invitation to evolve beyond their imperial ambitions, to become part of something greater than conquest. The humans have a saying, Vexterra concluded. The true measure of a civilization isn't how well it can fight, but how well it can grow. I thought they were weak because they chose not to conquer. Now I understand. They're strong enough not to need to. As she finished speaking, she felt it, that subtle shift in reality that she'd learned to recognize. Somewhere, on a level most Zentheri couldn't perceive, their human guardians were watching. Not as conquerors or rulers, but as patient gardeners, tending to yet another species learning to grow beyond its warlike roots. The garden was vast, but the gardeners were vigilant. And somewhere in Earth's orbit, the Museum of Hubris floated as a quiet reminder of the price of arrogance and the value of learning to grow in new directions.